And let's move on to our Redux integration. So routing alone we have done. Okay, I think before adding the Redux we need to have a views ready. So, and how the user logs in and creating the form, all sort of thing we need to do. So let's do those parts first. Let me create a nice looking login form. So we all know everything starts from the container in Bootstrap. Let me create a row. Let's move to the right with a little offset so that it appears to the center. So moving this column to the right, pushing it to the right means 4 proportion of this column, and eventually what left will be 4, so it will be into the center. Let's add a little bit of padding because it usually touches the edges of our browsers, which I don't want, which is a JavaScript object. I'll add a little bit of, okay, I'll add the margin to this row instead. Okay, let's create the form. So this is the usual way we create a Bootstrap form. So use email. Email is going to be the username. Name attribute needed since it is a form. Just I'm breaking down to a second line to see, and name. Okay. Of course the class name I forgot because just to add form control. Let's see how our, okay, looking good. Let's complete the rest of the part. Okay, password field, and finally the button okay, let's style a bit. Slightly move it to the so when the username type and login. Okay, the form will submit it. Let's handle the form submission. So I'm going to create a function. Okay, So, and okay, if we were using fat arrow based functions, so that's the one has a flexibility on the context, and which also been since it is a form, will also been provided the event. So we'll have to make sure to call the prevent default to avoid the page refresh. I mean, the form will eventually trigger the page refresh, so we'll avoid it, then we'll capture the values. Okay, unlike the previous example, I was depending on the state to track the changes happening into the input field. This time, I'm not particularly interested because I really don't see much use. Instead, I'm planning to use a different approach. Ref. So I'm implementing the constructor. I'm creating a global object, user email ref. We'll just go and get the DOM reference in a React way. So React has create ref, and this one I'm going to point it to so I'm just referring this object will carry all the information of whether what is the value being typed or not, those kind of things. One more object we need, user password. Okay, so we can, using this we can capture those values, like handle the callbacks or what. For example, let me see console log current value. Using this current object property, and in turn has one more property called value, we can capture the value whatever being typed. So let me show you that. So just open the inspect and open the console tab. So we have written that inside console log. Say when I click on login, I think something going wrong here. Actually, I made a mistake. It's actually a function. So through which we can capture the values. So let's see that one more time. See that the typed value is available here. So we, instead of using the state to continuously detect the changes, we can use the DOM reference. So once we have the DOM references ready, okay, I think we can proceed the login and let the user go to the respective page. So, okay, now I'm going to use Ajax call. Let me look at the API document. For login, it expects user email, user password, and the so and so called headers and the URL have to be accessed. Okay, let me do. I'm going to use the built-in window object fetch in order to make Ajax call. So this will always return a promise object. So promise object mean will have a resolved and reject callbacks. Mean if the result is success, uh, the resolve callback will be called, and if the result is failed or something, there is a reject callback be called. Uh, so I mean, if you really have a confusion on how the promises work, I think I can even go to ES6 console. If you see this, this is where I've written a simple example on. So a promise object takes a function with two approaches. Remember, it's a promise object. So a promise object can be built using various ways, but usually the promise object contain two scenarios: resolve and reject. During the execution, for example, when Ajax call is made, when the server is with the result, and it will give you uh, a success callback mean, we can say sort of result, it will invoke a resolve. So okay, we have received the success. So this is the block it will call. So we can access the promise by a function with the I mean representation then. So let me see. Let me open the console. So run. See the hello received the success result because I am calling the resolve function. If I am calling a reject function, I mean during the execution of Ajax call, the data will get rejected. So there is two approaches to get the result from a promise object. So I'm going to use that strategy. Otherwise, we can use async await in order to like add the queuing process. But here I'm fine with that. So the then approach. So let me make a fetch. It expects two parameters. Okay. One is the URL and the rest all the the request related properties. Okay, first thing, what is the URL we are going to call? This is the URL as it been given our API document. Okay, let me write that into the next line. Okay. The rest of the thing are the objects. Okay, the very important object is method. So we are going to make the post call. See, if you notice that, that was one of the requirement as well. And the body, what you are trying to send. Okay, before that, there is a header also. Let's define the header. Headers are another object. So what is the header? We have directly explicitly have given. This is the header it is going to require. I'm just going to copy it. So okay, and finally the body. This is a string, so I need to convert whatever object I have in JavaScript object type into a string. So to make a JavaScript object to string, we have a JSON stringify function. JSON means JSON object notation. So the JavaScript object will be converted into string. So what is the object we are trying to pass? So user name, user email, which we have from current value, and the another object, so let me write them. Okay, so all these things have to be sent: method, header, and the payload, the body payload which is going to take, and these data will be submitted to this URL. and we'll have to wait the response to come in. So the response can be captured with then function. Okay, so then function will have two blocks. One is for, see, that's what we saw that ES6 console, the sample code what we wrote. So then we'll expect first block with the result, another block for a error. So let's write that. So that's also functions. So I'm going to say result object or the error object. These two are the possibilities. If you are expecting an error to come in, maybe we'll type a console log error. Otherwise, we'll see what is the output is going to give me as a result. Okay, looks fine. Sort of result, I'll make it as a response. So it gives me a JSON response, then it is a promise. We can expect the result to come in. Now we got the result. See that we have the JWT token coming in, and which is a quite long string. So we had to go a little bit deeper in order to get the result. We'll somehow make this particular block easy to approach. I'll write down an alternate approach. Maybe I'll use the async await function to avoid the nesting of the couple of promises which is being given here. That I'll write that when I introduce the Redux part. So now we have a result. So if we just look at the result in a close way, it gives me an object, gives me a flag which is a status OK, and in turn it has a data that is actually the JSON JWT token. So we need to store that. We'll have to make sure if result.status OK. So in the local storage, set the item JWT. This is the key we have used. Result.data, because we are seeing the object having status data. The status is having OK keyword, so we are making sure OK and the data. Else remove an item, so to make sure there is no object exists. So it's so store JWT. Okay, now we have successfully saved the local storage. Then we can use the props history to redirect the user to the path, the main path somewhere. So let's see them. Admin at admin 3 4 5 6 7 8 hash. I'm clicking it, and if you see that the page has got redirected, and I'm in the welcome screen now. So the JWT token has been saved into local storage. We can I think time being I'll check. Now since I'm logged in, can I access the view all page? Yes, now I can access it. Now I can access the add edit page. So we have done with the protected path. So This particular application does not let the user to access certain path until the user is successfully logged in. We need to extend it, we need to add logout button and add the Redux and all this thing, which I will explain in the next part.